Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and today I have the opportunity to work on a reel that found its way into a parts lot where, well, a lot of fishing reels were sold for parts. This one actually works. I think the issue is probably that we got some line wound around the axle shaft, but this was featured as a reel of the day. This is a Bill Dance 20 by Zebco, and well, it's not a very expensive reel. It's in the Tennessee colors, and lots of dirt and grease and grime from sitting in the box and other places. We're going to show you how to take this reel apart, how to service it, and how to keep it running for a long time to come. Well, one of the things that you should do when you're looking at a reel that just came out of a parts box or for sale off of eBay or whatever, you should look to replace the line on that reel. Don't take for granted that the line looks good so it will be good. That's never really the case. You should just simply discard the line on a reel that you don't know about, replace it, and that way you can fish with confidence that the line is not going to break due to age or defect that might catch you later. Well, one of the other things you should do is try to subscribe to my channel if you like these kinds of videos, and if you do, use that notification button. That notification button will let you know when I'm posting videos, and you can see if that's one of the ones you want to watch. Alright, we've just seen this is probably one of the reasons why I wound up in the parts box. And I got to that by removing the click ratchet and the shim washer for the line light. You can see there's a lot of dirt on here. We're going to take this rotor off. We'll clean all of that up. Right now we want to go below and open up the case. And well, I've noticed that this handle's button, well, it's a little sluggish in turning as well. We're not going to fix that all in one quick fix, but there's a lot of rust on here. Probably says it's just a straight steel shaft, and either the button is swollen or the shaft has rusted in place. We're going to use a penetrating oil that will help to loosen it up over time. I can turn it. That's a good sign. And well, over time, a couple of applications that will make that work just fine. We're going to take the handle out now. It's held in place by a handle screw cap, and it should just pull out on this side. It does. I want to take it out. This is the other piece I want to use a penetrating oil on. That is a collapsible handle. It will collapse, but you want to make sure that you free it of dirt and debris. A good thing to do when you remove the handle is to put the handle screw cap right back in. That way you won't lose it. And another thing you should do in terms of not losing pieces and parts is have a strategy for organizing your parts. In this case, it's a parts tray. Big parts like this, well, they don't need to go into the parts tray. You're probably not going to lose them if you just leave them on your table. And here's an indication of, well, what makes a reel inexpensive versus expensive. This is a plastic spool, nicely painted, but plastic nonetheless. It's totally functional in small weights. For example, a 20 size reel, it's perfectly fine. As you get to the bigger reels with the heavier monofilament, it can buckle, it can warp, and well, it can just become inefficient. We're going to remove the side plate now. There's 3 screws that are holding it on, and you'll see in some of the more expensively designed reels you'll have bump guards on here and some other things, metal cases, for example, or graphite cases. I believe this is just a straight plastic jacketed case here. The reel probably sold as a combination on a rod, probably designed for folks that don't fish it every day, and probably sold for about $30 or $35 as a combination with the rod and reel, maybe even threw in a bait pack or whatever. Okay, the 3 screws are all the same size. We can pull that side plate off now. Sometimes easier said than done. I'm going to use a little utility knife here just as a wedge to help me get that off. If you're working on the reels, just be careful. If you're using the knife for obvious reasons, you can cut yourself. And maybe for the not so obvious reasons, you don't want to scar the paint on that. When I took that off, here's another example of why it's a little less expensive. It has a plastic bushing, not a bearing. And there is a shim washer that's going to go on the main gear after we take that off for cleaning. You want to bring your gear down. This is another thing that you notice when you're working on reels like this. There's a lot of grease from the manufacturer in there. I don't believe that the manufacturer expects you to service a reel like this. I think they just figure you're going to run it until it breaks, and then you're going to run out and get another one. And quite honestly, with the cost of service and some of the other things, this is viewed as a disposable reel. That doesn't mean you have to accept that. If you do the service on these on a regular basis, maybe once a year, clean it up, get rid of the old greases, bring in the new greases, and just check for any worn or broken pieces and parts. They can last for an awful long time. These reels will always do what you purchased them for. The only time you get to hate on reels is if the reel is doing something beyond what you purchased it for, assuming that you had good advice when you were purchasing it to begin with. If somebody was telling you that this reel is going to go out and help you land large black fish, well, never going to do that. That wasn't what it was intended to do. This is a pond reel, and well, it's good for bassing and the like, but again, it's not the top of the line by any stretch of the imagination. That statement that you get what you pay for is, it's pretty true. I'm just going to leave these 3 gearing pieces right there to the side. We're going to come up top now and remove the rotor. I believe that's a 12 millimeter nut that comes off in the traditional sense. We're going to do that for 2 reasons. We want to check underneath. We also want to clean this rotor. It's white, and this rotor is in, well, it's pretty dirty, right? And that's probably from sitting in that bin. I don't even use a rod and reel cleaner to do that. This is a Penn Precision rod and reel cleaner. It'll do a nice job taking off that old grease and grime. I use it on a kitchen scrubby pad. It's not very abrasive, but it has enough that if you've got fish scales or things like that that have kind of settled on your reel, it will help clean it up. One of the problems, unfortunately, that I have right now is that I have a glove on. The glove keeps grease off my hand, but it puts the grease on the glove. And when I go to clean something like this, it usually transfers that over. So just be aware of it. So this is part of a bigger lot of fishing reels. My son-in-law actually found this one, and he said he'd like to get it cleaned up so we can put it back onto a bass rod. Yeah, my grandson take it fishing, so that's kind of why we're doing this one today. If you look at the anti-reverse system, it's an old style dog. It's got a dog that's going to intersect with the ridges on the inside of the rotor. It's controlled by a little eccentric brake here. It's got a spring that runs in that groove. As you're reeling, it's fine in one direction. As you go to push back, it pushes the dog out, and that grabs one of the ridges. Now we can get real fancy with this one. You don't need to. You have an exposed bearing right here. And if you have the oiler, you do not even need to remove that bearing. You can simply use the tag end through the side and get some oil on that bearing. All right, well, we just did that to see what was going on underneath there. Again, from what makes this reel not very expensive, this is your basic, what I call pot metal type of gearing. It's not the strongest gearing in the world, but again, this is a 20 size reel. It's not expected to go land 50-pound fish. It's not saying if you don't hook a 50-pound fish, you can't bring it in with a little skill. You probably can, but that's not how it was designed. All right, we're just going to tighten this down. And unfortunately, you can see I probably should have cleaned my gloves up before I continued with that. The case has got some dirt on it as well, so I'm just going to take this pad and just bring it over and see if we can't bring some of that dirt off of there as well. I guess the bright orange colors of Tennessee there probably tell me that you can show all kinds of dirt with this. But that's the Bill Dance colors. That's where Bill Dance is from. And fortunate enough to have a A Bill Dance signed hat. How do you like that? Jane at Jane's Reel Repair in Mississippi knows Bill Dance. She's right on the other side of the river from Memphis. She knows Bill Dance, and we were talking one day, and she said, "I'll get you something here that'll help you remember Bill." And that's what she sent me, and I'm very appreciative for that. Okay, after you've cleaned the main gear, get a good amount of grease back on that. I want to do the same thing. Inspect the teeth. This reel was running fine. Inspect the teeth on it. Get some grease all around the oscillation gear, as everything is going to touch and need grease. We'll do that. This is your crosswind block. Inspect that. Clean it. Let's bring this back in. Put a grease into the slot. Make sure your stud is hanging low. And go ahead and put that back on. And then we got one more piece we're going to grease while we have the reel open, and that's the bottom of the pinion gear. Now again, if you had instant anti-reverse in this and some other things, you can go to the point of taking the rotor off like I did, and going ahead and removing the bearing and addressing all of that. But the bearing was exposed. The anti-reverse is not an instant clutch. You don't need to do a whole lot with this, which is, well, kind of nice actually. All right, we're going to insert the main gear. I'm going to grab our shaft. There's a flat side of the shaft with the hole in it that's going to face forward. A light coating of grease, and we'll go install that. While I do that, I want to encourage you to ask questions. If you're working on a reel, maybe if you're wondering about a reel, if you're curious about the manufacturers. Zebco is now owned by a company called Rotor Products. It's Zebco and Quantum. Those of you that know that Zebco at one point in time owned Finor and Van Stahl. They no longer own those. They transferred ownership of that to Pure Fishing. And well, the Rotor Products owns the Luz fishing reel brand, and so they've focused on Luz as the top brand, Quantum as the second brand, and well, Zebco as the introductory or value priced brand, if you will. And that's what we see here with the with this Bill Dance reel. Okay, we put the shims back in, made sure everything was in good order, that there were no broken parts. Attempted to clean it, and of course transferred some of that grease from my glove right back onto the reel. And well, we're going to put the case screws in and service the drags. This is a basic spinning reel. If you have a basic spinning reel and can't find a video on one, let's say you have a Daiwa or a Shakespeare or an Abu or a Mitchell, in the modern sense, this one. The vintage ones do vary, but this is a basic format for a fishing reel. And if you don't see a video on that, you can use this in a step-by-step process to guide you in your approach to fixing your reel. Okay, that's in. Made a little bit of a mess when I was greasing that pinion gear, so we'll take that, get that done. We'll do a final cleaning on this when I take the glove off. There's one more thing I want to do, well, a couple more things I want to do. Is put the handle back on. Put the handle back on. We'll set it up as a left-handed crank. That's the most common. This is a bi-directional handle, so if you want it as a right-hand crank, just insert it from the other side and do the same thing. Tighten down your nut cap. We'll put our click ratchet back on. I can take our little tie-down screw for the rotor nut. Install that. Put our click ratchet on and the spool leveler washers on. And now we just want to take a look. I'm guessing that we either have Teflon drags in here or felt washers. Again, it's a pond reel, probably don't even have many, maybe only has one. This is a good place to tell you to take pictures along the way. That way when you're removing pieces, you'll know what they are. Well, we got hard washers in here. What you want to do is make sure that the cavity is clean, free of debris. Same thing with the washers. And this is a 6-washer setup, so we're going to have that hard washer, and then we're going to have a keyed washer. It's round with a rectangular center to it, and we alternate. So we started with the drag washer and then went to the metals. The middle washer is called an eared washer because it looks like ears on the face. They go in the slots. These are in dry. They came dry. They're going to stay dry. Sometimes it's inappropriate to oil your drag washers, as they'll slip and not hold as designed. There is a ring here that has an indent to it. You want to make sure that the clip is in that ring. And go ahead and put that back on. And take our button. Well, we know that the performance already is going to be improved because, well, among other things, we don't have that line tangled up around the axle shaft. Tighten that down, make sure that you have the drag, and let's give it that test. And one thing I didn't do, I didn't oil the seams here from the bail. So let's make sure that those get a little oil in it, work it back and forth. That way you can ensure that it's going to trip nice and easy. We'll open that up. Trips nice and easy, and the button already is starting to loosen up. As I mentioned, this was pretty much frozen, and a little bit of penetrating oil helped that. Okay, one more shot of that before I go. I'm going to pull off my glove. I'm going to do a little bit more of the cleanup on this reel since I was transferring my crease in. And we'll be able to give this one back to my son-in-law, who'll put it on the rod, take my grandson fishing. All good. All right, well, that's it. That's our Zebco Bill Dance 20. A little bit of an explanation as to how it was made. Showed you how to service this reel and other reels that are similar to this one. And hopefully you've enjoyed that. If you did, again, I want to encourage you to subscribe. And if you do subscribe, please use that notification button. That'll let you know when I'm posting. And, well, you can see if it's a video you want to watch. This was an entry-level freshwater one. Tomorrow may be the biggest of saltwater trolling reels. You may find level line bass reels in there. You might work on ambassadors all the time. You never know what's going to come up, and that's kind of what's fun with this channel because, well, essentially you're looking over my shoulder in my shop as I work on projects. So, thanks to our first responders, our police, fire, safety, and rescue folks for everything it is that they do. I truly do appreciate all of your efforts and your career choice and your dedication to public safety. I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to thank those who have subscribed and encourage those who have not to go ahead and push that button. And I want to thank everybody for all it is that you do to make this channel a success. This is Dennis from Second Chance Tackle, wishing everybody a great day and fun fishing.